Welcome back. Over the last few weeks on Halftime Report, we've been talking about increased private equity investments in certain segments. And this is our special segment where we put you ahead of the curve on what are these underlying opportunities. We've spoken about the consumer space, we've spoken about media, we're speaking about the medical space as well, investments in healthcare, wellness, etc. And today we're talking about the medical devices space. Ekta, first roundup of the opportunities and the sector itself.
Well, yes, it's an interesting space. The medical devices industry is seeing strong PE interest. There have been around 59 private equity transactions in the Indian medical devices space since 2017, with PE deals in the space surging by around 3.3 times compared to pre-COVID-19 levels. Now, some of the prominent deals have included Warburg Pincus investing around $210 million in Merrill Life Sciences, which is one of India's largest medical device manufacturers, $300 million in ophthalmic equipment manufacturer Appasamy Associates. Additionally, Samara Capital has invested around $150 million in stent manufacturer SMT, and one of the most notable and recent has been KKR's acquisition of Healthium from Apex Funds, valued at over around $800 million. Now, Indian companies have largely focused their efforts and consequently deal activity on medical consumables and mid-range medical equipment. Medical consumables primarily encompass single-use or disposable products like syringes, IVs, surgical blades. Higher-end equipment produced by Indian companies includes stents, ventilators, X-ray machines and diagnostic equipment. So why is there such strong interest in the medtech space, particularly in medical consumables? The Indian medical devices market is valued at around $11 to $12 billion, and it's amongst the fastest growing globally, with an estimated CAGR of 10 to 12% from 2024 to 2030. Now, within this market, the medical consumables and implant segment is projected to be worth around 4 to 4.5 billion, growing at 10% CAGR. Currently, India is one of the top 10 manufacturers of medical consumables worldwide. Indian manufacturers benefit from lower production costs, skilled labor, and competitive pricing, which has led some investors to liken the sector to the generics industry of the 1990s. However, there are challenges and trends to consider. Investors emphasize the need for companies to enhance their technology capabilities and be mindful of competition from China, which is considered a decade ahead of India in this space. Additionally, India's ability to move into higher tech sectors where multinational corporations hold an 80 to 90% market share, such as specialized devices and high-end surgery accessories and consumables. So while investors expect strong private equity interest in the medical devices sector over the next 5 to 10 years, one cannot rule out pharma or healthcare companies throwing their hat in the ring as well. A recent example has been Alkem tying up with US-based Exactech to manufacture their joint replacement implants in India, to Mankind having been potentially interested in Healthium as well. Let's wind this down with the near-term deal potential pipeline. Possible deals could revolve around the acquisition of India's largest cardiac stent manufacturer, SMT. KKR, TPG and Alkem are reportedly in the race to acquire the company. Other anticipated deals include Everstone's plan to merge Translumina with Everlife Holdings, a distribution platform, and eventually list the merged entity. Additionally, medical equipment manufacturer Scanray, which counts notable investors such as Arun Kumar of Strides Pharma amongst its backers, is another name to watch out for in terms of potential M&A.
All right, so that setup that we've seen for the medical devices itself. Let's keep an eye out on that, and let's take a short break. On the other side, we'll have important guests joining in as well to discuss the opportunity here in terms of investments and some of the challenges in terms of scaling up as well. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Well, let's continue our conversation about the medical devices industry and the kind of PE interest that we've seen. To talk more about it, we have Kaivaan Movdawalla, healthcare sector leader and partner EY, Ernst Young, India. And we also have Anish Bafna, MD and CEO, Healthium Medtech, who's with us. Anish as well as Kaivaan, Thank you very much for joining in. Kaivaan, we've had these conversations for a long time. We've moved from talking about hospitals to now medical devices.
Right.
Medical devices are seeing a lot of private equity interest. Give us a sense in terms of why and how much more can we see?
Sure, I think there are 2 or 3 things, and we've got to look at it from the demand-supply side, right? So on the supply side, traditionally it's been an MNC-dominant system with a very fragmented Indian supplier system.
Right.
Now that's changing. I think the number of companies who've scaled more than 100 million are almost 4 times what it was in the past. The Indian companies have been growing at late double digits versus MNCs where the growth has been slower. I think the big catalyst is on the demand side, where hospitals want to embrace Indian products given institutional pricing pressures, changing business model towards mass healthcare, penetration of Ayushman Bharat, right? So I think that's really driving this shift. Interestingly, we spoke about private equity money, 60 transactions, close to 3.5 times interest compared to pre-COVID. And I think the last point, Ekta, I'll cover is that, we are still a minuscule percentage of the global market today. We are 1% of the global exports. China is 10x of us. So the generic pharma story, which has worked well for India, I think med devices is going to see that headroom. So very soon we are going to be Make in India, made for the world. And I think the vision for the sector is to move from a 3 billion to a 25 billion industry over the next 5 years, actually capturing really 5% of the global market is what I see with the blend of private enterprise, institutional reforms, and also a larger ecosystem play.
So $3 billion turning into $25 billion. Anish, one likens this to how the generic market grew in India for the world as well. What from that can we learn to ensure that this growth also is a lot more strong, a lot more sustainable, and perhaps can be a lot bigger as well? What are the lessons that one should learn from that?
It's a very right sort of simile, because we are exactly where Indian pharma was about 30 or 40 years back. And currently, I think this is a transformative period for the Indian medical device industry, right? I mean, historically, the med device ecosystem has been heavily import dependent. 70 to 75% of what we use in this country is important, and that has been traditionally dominated by global multinationals. Right? With the ever-expanding healthcare provider space and network, there is an increased requirement for products to be manufactured in India, to be supplied here, high-quality products at affordable prices. And which is where you're seeing consolidation happening. You're seeing the private equity players also playing a very important role. But what we are seeing currently is the development of an ecosystem in India. A lot of players, there are about 3,000 now registered players as far as med device are concerned. And the beginning has started with surgical consumables and products that are used in infection prevention and the likes. But over a period of time, the ecosystem will get fostered. And as more components come in, as the captive consumption of the domestic market increases, we will see a lot of scale players who are able to do exactly what pharma did in the international environment and take share from large multinationals in Europe, US, and other parts of the world.
Okay. Well, Anish, Healthium itself has had a very interesting story. It's gone from Apex to now KKR. Give us a sense in terms of how exactly the private equity money changed the course of the company, and where would you rank Healthium in terms of the products and the services that you're providing today as compared to the global peers?
Right. So, our story predominantly started in 2018. And in the fragmented market like India, the medical device industry, as I said, was predominantly multinational driven. Our vision was to create an independent Indian medtech company that not only caters to the Indian population, but creates strong products that can be taken internationally as well. And we started through the acquisition route. We acquired 3 companies, 2 in India, 1 internationally. And over a period of the next 6 years, we were able to make 3 more acquisitions, make a divestiture. And as an organization, we've remained very focused on the surgical portfolio. So, what was earlier a sutures manufacturing company is now having 4 different verticals. We have advanced surgery, which is everything to do with wound closure. We have wound management. We have created an arthroscopy portfolio from scratch arthroscopy globally is about $5.5 billion market. And these are difficult to manufacture products. So, our view was India has an ecosystem in terms of the necessary skills, whether they are polymers, chemical, metals, and the likes. You have a lot of regulatory experience in this country, and if you are able to harness it, we can create a medtech company of scale. So we have arthroscopy, and then we have infection prevention. And that journey sort of has allowed us to grow the business double digit, both on the top line and the bottom line over a period of the last 6 years. We've grown our top line at about 20%, our bottom line at about 24%. And we've pivoted the company internationally, where 50% of our overall sales comes from the international market. We are now present in about 90 countries. We have about 85 patents. And all this was possible only because of the infusion of private equity money, which sort of allowed us to create this platform, both through the acquisition route and organically, and gave us sort of the funding to grow internationally as well. As we speak, we are the largest manufacturer of suture needles in the world, and 1 in 5 surgeries globally uses a Healthium product. So it's been a very interesting journey, and I really think that we've just started scraping the surface, because we cater currently to a TAM of about $15 to $16 billion globally, and with certifications like US FDA, UMDR. The global network has really opened up for us, which is where we see a very large part of our growth coming for the next 10 to 15 years.
Right. We'll, ask you for your experience on this one as well. But coming back to you, Kaivaan, one of the things is that the perception issue. Earlier, it was because it was MNC dominated, people associated MNC with a certain quality, India with a certain quality. How do you ensure that the perception of Indian quality being at par, if not better, than the MNC quality is tackled?
No, I think that's an excellent question. And I think there are 2 or 3 elements to that response. I think one is really credible data. I think Indian companies have been spending on R&D, even up to 5% of revenue, to generate data on technical equivalence. I think that's extremely critical to boost what I call hand loyalty, right? Surgeons who are getting trained at medical colleges, catch them young. I think data is one. Second is robust manufacturing capacity and capability, right? The regulations, whether it's US FDA, accreditations around EU MDR, CE, I think will play a very significant role in narrowing this perception gap. And I think third most critical is to have a very wide and deep product basket, right? Which covers at least 30% of the TAM, which gives confidence to the surgeons that these are products which are credible. And I think finally, the companies in this space need to have a very singular vision. Can I be the one-stop OT provider? Correct. Can I be the one-stop ICU provider and provide products at scale with the right element of scientific selling?
Okay. Anish, just before we wrap up this conversation, we are fantastic when it comes to medical consumables, products which are probably used outside the surgery and to a certain extent used inside the body as well, such as, say, stents. But we still haven't reached high-end medical manufacturing, which is dominated by MNCs. When does that shift happen, and will that shift happen?
Ekta, I think we are poised for a multi-decade growth opportunity. The beginning always starts with consumables, products that are relatively easy to manufacture, that are able to harness the local ecosystem. But over a period of time, we will see the emergence of several players across subcategories who will position themselves globally. And, we have all the necessary raw material in place to make sure that we are able to make cost-effective and scaled manufacturing facilities that are able to cater to different kind of product categories in the future, right? I think the growth vector will get accentuated by this entire Make in India effort. And currently it's both Make in India and Make for the world. And what will further sort of accentuate this is our spends on R&D. If we as a company are spending roughly about 4 to 5% on R&D, and which everybody else is. So what I feel is that, our capabilities toward bringing innovative products is increasingly becoming better. We are having more collaborative efforts between industry stakeholders as well as the government, and the government's proactive stance to the sector becomes fundamental, right, for this kind of transformation to happen. So you're seeing a lot of work around infrastructure development, facilitating R&D, attracting FDI, promoting sectoral upskilling. So, with initiatives like PLI, the establishment of medical device parks, we will slowly see the formation of an ecosystem. But ultimately, what is very important is the captive consumption of the domestic market, right? I mean, the reason China grew is because the domestic market was very, very strong. As we are able to get a better foothold domestically and take share from multinationals, I think it's a matter of time where you will see a larger slew of products coming to the fore.
All right, Anish, as well as Kaivaan, a pleasure speaking to you all on the medical devices industry. And I'm sure this is one of many conversations considering the kind of growth that we're seeing within this space. Thanks very much for taking the time out and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, we need to take a short break, but we'll get you more on the markets, a lot of stocks in focus. Stay tuned.